You rate government's response to the COVID-19 crisis so far. Do you think government is doing what it should be doing?
No, in my view, I mean, everybody was surprised by this COVID-19, but I think South Africa learned quickly from other countries and acted as speedily as they could. And I think the way in which we started locking down was just on time for us to slow down the infections, and whilst preparing for the worst in terms of making sure the hospitals are ready, the protective clothing is there, ventilators are there. That's really what it is about. Slow it down so that you can be able to manage the crisis.
Are there any areas you think that we still need to work on? Any areas maybe we've missed?
I think we started a little bit later in terms of testing. We must do more testing. And we must make sure that the frontline health workers are protected enough to deal with this pandemic. I don't think we must reach a stage where there are complaints about people not having it. We have to gear up the hospitals and clinics in this country to perform at a higher level than they've done before. And I think that's the challenge. What we have learned in the last few weeks is that this government, which had difficulties in delivering some services, has been able to deliver services much more faster, which means there is capacity, and we should do it.
Are you surprised? I think some people might be surprised to see government moving quite so quickly.
Yeah, no, there is surprise, but clearly people put aside all their politics, their differences, focused on saving the lives of people of South Africa. I think the pandemic has brought to us the reality that if we focus on our self-interest, we will not be able to deliver. And I believe from this COVID-19 experience, this country must come up with a plan of action that should change the quality of lives of our people. I mean, what we have seen in terms of the depth of poverty, conditions under which people live, even the issues about street people. We've never seen it in the numbers that we have seen before. And I think this is the time for us to fix the country.
I mean, in a way, I suppose what you're saying is to treat all of our problems like the emergency with which we're treating COVID-19, to grow jobs, to basically try and bring people out of poverty. We need that same kind of coordinated effort.
That's what we are expecting. Actually, the church leaders have taken that position, have been interacting with the government, and our expectation is that we'll come out of COVID-19 better placed to deal with the challenges we have not been able to deal with since 1994.
I'll ask you about the churches, the faith community. If I recall, while you were the Director General in the Presidency, you were still actually ministering to a parish, if I remember at that time correctly. Is there a big role for churches to play here? And I say that when religious leaders aren't actually able to go out into the communities in the way they normally do.
Yeah, no, this is completely new. As you might know, we ran a model in Naleji in Soweto, which is in D1 of Soweto. Developed a model where the community can work together to eradicate poverty, which is ecumenical. It works with all the NGOs in the area. It works with the development workers in each ward. It works with the councillors, and it was able to deal with many of the challenges in the area. The Council of Churches has adopted that system, and that's why in the present plan, we have what we call the LEAN, which is the Local Ecumenical Action Network, that everybody in a particular locality must come together. Now on a virtual basis, we now have to use online ways of communicating to make sure that we deal with the challenges faced by our people, especially in the poor areas. I mean, there are people without food. There are people who have lost their livelihoods, who sold tomatoes in a street, and suddenly they can't do that. Even if they tried, there are no people to buy them. Those who are temporarily employed have lost their jobs. I think it's of vital importance that South Africans work together at a local level to reach all those people who are in need during this lockdown time.
And for churches and the private sector and government to all coordinate, to communicate, to get their work together, working properly, do you see evidence of that? I mean, certainly see business doing a lot more for the community than they've done in a long time.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think one of the missing links in the process is more of participation of business at local levels. I think that's where really the challenge is. I think business is participating at a national level. They are making donations. They are assisting in one way or another. But I think we must learn to work together at a local level. Unfortunately, in those poor areas, those corner shops, most of them got shut down. And when the malls came, those small businesses lost their business. And what you have now is plaza shops and, that people rely on in some of the places. So we still have to work together with business. I think where the challenge is going to be, it's when we reconstruct the economy, because we're going to have to do it. We're going to have to make South Africa a winner out of this. And we're going to have to deal with the consequences of being downgraded and make sure we come out of that situation. And that's where the big business is going to be critical.
Father Chikane, I mean, you have immense experience of governance, and governance is all about making sometimes very difficult choices. There are difficult choices to come. We saw that the President and the National Coronavirus Command Council took the difficult choice on Thursday to extend the lockdown by another 2 weeks. That will have been a very painful choice to make from an economic point of view. What's your advice? What should be the sort of guiding factor here? Obviously, we need to save lives. We need to build capacity in our health sector. We need to keep the economy going as well. If you were asked for advice, what would your advice to government be during this time?
Well, I mean, we are having interactions with government. Even yesterday and tomorrow we'll be sending documents to them to make a contribution about what needs to be done. Let me say in general terms, the point is a lockdown is to slow down the infections so that you can get your health system in place, because nobody was ready for this. And 2 weeks was not enough to deal with the infections that are already in. You need 14 days to go through one cycle and another 14 days to go through another cycle to be able to know where the critical points are. And once you have done that, you can be more targeted in terms of your testing and deal with the problem as it comes. But the critical issue is to make sure that the pressure on the health systems does not go beyond our capacity. Whilst we are doing that, we need to then begin to unlock in a systematic way to make sure you don't have a recurrence of large numbers of people being infected, so that you can get certain businesses start to work, etc. And I'm sure government must be working on those details, and we are putting up our submissions in it. But we definitely needed the lockdown period to be able to deal with this crisis and get the economy coming back in a controlled, managed way, so that we don't have many people dying. The key thing is to save lives.
Father, can I just ask, it's an important national moment, isn't it? It's a moment where we're all focused on one thing, and I think everyone, people of many sectors are putting their differences aside, their politics aside, sometimes even their ideologies aside, and they're talking about what is the best thing to do now. Is it important, as we end the lockdown, as it starts to get lifted, as you predict over time, is it important to try and keep that sense of national moment, that almost national unity that we seem to be experiencing at this time?
I think it's definitely the case. You see, we never, after 94, we needed a Marshall Plan to correct the damage, fix the damage that apartheid caused over years, over the period of slavery, colonialism, etc. We needed a Marshall Plan where every South African focused on that. What happened in 94 is that people went into political game rather than deal with this crisis. That's why the coronavirus has, surfaced the type of levels of poverty, the density of people living on top of each other, being unable to actually comply with the law of being in a house because it's a shack, one room. You can't stay there. We have now come to the realization that we can't go on like this. And so I am hoping that when we come to an end of unlocking this economy, when we unlock it, we're going to focus on dealing with poverty in this country in a way that no one, South African, should live under the conditions under which they are living. This country has got the resources to deal with this matter, and I think we should remove politics out of it and deal with it decisively.